My name's Dr. Veronica Hale. For 15 years, I was the quiet force behind one of the most powerful financial platforms in the industry. I built the algorithm they built their empire on, but they never said my name. They thought I'd stay silent, even when they pushed me out. What they didn't know is, I saw it coming. And by the time they handed me that severance folder, I'd already written the next chapter of my story. So if you're here to find out how I took down the company that erased me, keep watching. They called it a restructuring, a word that sounds sterile, efficient, just clinical enough to pretend it's not personal. I was sitting in a glass-walled conference room across from Marissa Kane, the VP of Product, and Elena from HR. I'd been at Caraxis for 15 years. I'd built the core of the company's technology. But on that gray Wednesday morning, none of that mattered. Marissa's voice had that practiced softness, like someone trying to talk a wild animal into calm submission. "We're restructuring your position," she said, with a sympathetic tilt of her head. But I could see it in her eyes. She wanted it over, fast, clean. I didn't say anything right away. I didn't have to. The silence made them uncomfortable. Elena slid a manila folder across the table. Inside was the usual 2 weeks severance for every year served, a few months of health insurance, and a list of career coaches no one ever actually called. It was a template, a cut and paste ending. I nodded calmly. I understand. They looked relieved, almost surprised, like they'd expected panic, resistance, maybe even tears. But I didn't flinch, and they had no idea why. See, 3 weeks earlier, I'd received an internal email by mistake, a thread between executives discussing plans to sunset legacy leadership in R&D. My name appeared 3 times, phrases like phasing out and transition risk. That email didn't scare me. It confirmed what I'd already suspected for months. They wanted me out before finalizing their next round of patents. I had become inconvenient, too experienced, too careful, too visible in the wrong ways. They thought they were being subtle, that they could take everything I'd built, scrub my name from the records, and pass it off as a clean handoff to younger leadership. But I wasn't caught off guard. I'd spent the last several months preparing for this exact moment. Not out of spite, but out of necessity. Marissa kept talking, probably hoping I'd fill the silence. "You've been an incredible part of this team," she said. "Your work has laid the foundation for so much of what we've built." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the irony was so heavy it barely needed comment. She continued, "We'll need your laptop, badge, and phone by Friday. Your team will be informed later today." My team. 6 engineers I had handpicked, trained, mentored, the same team that helped me build the real-time processing engine behind Account Pulse, the software Caraxis used to impress Fortune 500 clients. I stood up, folder in hand. "Of course. Anything else?" "That's all for now," Marissa said, eyes darting away. I walked out without a word, back to my office, closed the door, pulled out my personal phone, and typed just one sentence. "It's happening. Friday's my last day." The reply came instantly. "Perfect. Contracts are ready. Dinner tonight." They thought they were writing the final chapter of my story, but I was just turning the page. The email wasn't meant for me. That was their first mistake.
It landed in my inbox on a Thursday afternoon, wrapped in corporate buzzwords and CC'd names I wasn't supposed to see. A thread between Victor Maddox, the CEO, and a handful of executives. The subject line? Strategic Transition, R&D Leadership Realignment. Harmless on the surface, but when I opened it, the message was crystal clear. They were planning to gut senior staff in research, quietly, efficiently, and before any new IP filings were submitted. The phrase sunsetting legacy roles came up 3 times. My name, listed under transition risks, next to words like non-essential and potential bottleneck. After 15 years, I was a bottleneck.
That email didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like confirmation. Because for months, I had sensed something shifting. Conversations I wasn't invited to. Strategy meetings that used to include me suddenly happening without me. I wasn't paranoid. I was methodical. I had built systems. And one thing I'd learned from building systems is this. When something's about to be deleted, it disappears from the index first. That's what they were doing to me, scrubbing me from their roadmap before I had the chance to notice. But I had noticed. I didn't panic. I documented. I started saving everything, meeting notes, internal memos, code reviews. I backed up every iteration of the algorithm I had improved, and more importantly, I stopped contributing anything new on company time. Instead, I shifted my real work to my home office, my personal laptop, my tools, my time. I rebuilt the processing algorithm from scratch, cleaner, faster, more efficient. The next evolution of the engine that powered Account Pulse, the one they still hadn't patented, not yet, and I didn't do it alone. I reached out to someone I trusted, Daniel Reed, CEO of Nexalogic. We'd met at a data infrastructure summit 2 years earlier. He remembered my talk, the one Victor had tried to cut short. Daniel listened, and he understood, not just the technical potential of what I'd built, but the value of the mind behind it. With his help, I filed a patent under my name. Nexalogic's legal team handled it discreetly, thoroughly. The documentation I had kept, the logs, the design diagrams, even the video notes explaining my architecture, became evidence. A legal firewall they couldn't breach. When the confirmation arrived, patent granted, Dr. Veronica Hale, I didn't feel triumph. I felt relief. Finally, something with my name on it. Official. Permanent. I didn't tell anyone at Caraxis. I let them walk straight into their own blind spot. Because if they were going to erase me from their future, I wanted them to realize I had already taken mine back. The next time they'd see my name, it wouldn't be on a resignation email. It would be in the press. I never cared about having my face on the company website. That's not why I did the work. I cared about solving problems no one else could even define. About building something that didn't just function, but changed the way systems operated at scale. The algorithm I developed for Account Pulse wasn't some auxiliary tool. It was the platform. It took in billions of data points in real time, processed them with near zero latency, and made instant decisions for Fortune 500 clients. It was what made Caraxis stand. And I built it. But if you asked anyone outside the engineering team, you'd never know. Victor Maddox, the CEO, stood on stage at tech conferences, flashing charts and mock-ups, thanking the incredible product vision of the executive team. Marissa would chime in with lines about cross-functional innovation, and me, I was the woman in the back corner, the one with the thick binder and the quiet voice, the one they never named. At first, I convinced myself it didn't matter, that the code spoke for itself, that recognition was a luxury for people who had time for self-promotion. I had work to do. Deadlines, performance issues, scaling problems no one else could fix. But every time I saw my work folded into someone else's presentation, every time I watched a client shake Victor's hand for something I architected from scratch, something shifted. It wasn't just about credit. It was about ownership. They started referring to the algorithm as company IP, even though I'd written the original prototype on my personal machine before Account Pulse even had a name. They said it belonged to Caraxis, because I had improved it while I was employed there. But what they ignored, deliberately ignored, was that I never signed over creative rights. I was never part of the executive patent filings. My contributions were always team-based, lumped in with catch-all legal phrasing designed to make attribution optional. Optional until they wanted to let me go and keep the tech. That's when I realized staying quiet wasn't humility. It was a vulnerability they were counting on. So I changed tactics.
I started documenting everything. Not just code commits, but my thinking behind each change. I kept logs of experiments, time-stamped video notes, and saved every sketch, flowchart, and whiteboard photo to encrypted drives. I made sure every improvement I worked on outside of office hours was provably mine, and I read every clause in my employment contract. Twice. Then I had a legal advisor read it again. I wasn't building a case for revenge. I was building proof. A firewall. Because I knew that someday someone would try to take what I'd built. And when they did, I wouldn't have to raise my voice or make a scene. I'd have receipts. While they were planning my exit, I was already planning my future. Long before that email slipped into my inbox, I had started redesigning the algorithm. Not because I thought I'd be fired, but because I knew it could be better, faster, smarter. And this time, I wanted it to be mine. I didn't touch a single line of company-owned code. Everything I created lived on my personal devices. My home office became a second lab, one with no whiteboards to erase or conference calls to distract me. Just quiet, uninterrupted thought. The kind of space where real innovation happens. At night, while Caraxis executives slept under the illusion of control, I was rebuilding the future they didn't even understand. The original algorithm handled large-scale financial data processing. My new version? It could self-optimize based on live data structures, adjusting processing patterns on the fly. It was leaner, more secure, capable of adapting to volatile markets in ways legacy software couldn't touch. But I didn't stop at building. I documented everything: time-stamped backups, independent logs, video explanations of my architecture choices. I even created a digital paper trail linking the work to legally purchased software licenses. Nothing connected to Caraxis. Then I filed the patent. With Daniel Reed, CEO of Nexalogic, guiding the process, it moved quickly. Nexalogic had a reputation for being surgically precise with legal filings, and this was no exception. Every diagram, every memo, every bit of metadata I had collected was submitted. No part of my claim was vague. There were no gray areas. The documentation was airtight. And when the confirmation came through, patent granted to Dr. Veronica Hale, it was more than legal protection. It was liberation. That evening, Daniel took me to dinner, discreet, outside the city, far from the polished chaos of tech campuses. He brought a folder. Inside, an executive contract. Chief Innovation Officer at Nexalogic. 7-figure signing bonus, substantial equity, public attribution, a clause guaranteeing my name on every product that used my algorithm, permanently. I held the pen for a moment. Not because I hesitated, but because I understood the weight of what I was about to do. I wasn't just leaving Caraxis. I was reclaiming everything they'd quietly taken from me for over a decade. I signed. No press release, no LinkedIn update. Just a quiet agreement between two people who understood exactly what was at stake and exactly what was coming. When I walked into that glass-walled room at Caraxis for the restructuring, they thought they were executing a clean exit strategy. They didn't know I had already launched my own. The difference was, mine had a future, and a signature with real power behind it. The moment I left that glass-walled room, I wasn't grieving a career. I was executing a pivot. I sent one message. It's happening. Friday's my last day. Daniel replied instantly. Perfect timing. Contracts are ready. Dinner tonight. While HR was busy finalizing my severance packet, Nexalogic was preparing my onboarding documents. While Marissa rehearsed her speech to inform the team, Daniel's lawyers were filing the final paperwork for our licensing deal. The two timelines were running in parallel, but only one of them had a future. That night over dinner, Daniel slid another folder across the table, thinner than the last, just a signature page and a press release draft. "As soon as you sign," he said, "we announce your new role, Chief Innovation Officer, Public Attribution, exclusive licensing rights to your patented algorithm, your team, your terms, your name on everything." I didn't hesitate. I picked up the pen and signed. This wasn't just a job. It was a statement. One written in ink and backed by a company that actually recognized the value of the mind behind the code. We toasted quietly. No press, no photographers, just two people who understood that power doesn't always come from volume. Sometimes it comes from timing, from leverage, from control of the one thing no one else can duplicate: your own work. The next morning, I arrived at Caraxis as if it were any other Friday. Calm, focused, unbothered. I sat through transition meetings, packed up my office, left detailed documentation for every project I touched. Not because I owed them anything, but because I wanted no ambiguity. Professional, clean, unshakable. Marissa stopped by twice. The first time to check if I was doing okay. The second to awkwardly ask if I had anything lined up. I smiled. "I start Monday." She blinked. "That's fast. What kind of role?" "A leadership position," I said simply. No further details. Let her wonder. At 5 p.m., I handed over my badge, my laptop, my phone. Everything they believed tied me to them. I walked out with a single cardboard box, 15 years of loyalty, reduced to a framed photo, a coffee mug, and a technical excellence award for the algorithm they no longer legally owned. By Monday morning at 7 a.m., the press release hit every major tech outlet. Nexalogic announces exclusive licensing deal for breakthrough data processing algorithm. Dr. Veronica Hale named Chief Innovation Officer. The patent number was listed. The language was unmistakable. Any use of the algorithm moving forward requires a license from Nexalogic. At 9:15, my phone buzzed. A message from Miguel, my former lead engineer. "Complete chaos here. What did you do?" I replied, "Check your personal email. You have an offer." The quiet woman they let go on Friday? She now owned the foundation of their entire product line, and Caraxis was about to find out just how big a mistake they'd made. By 9 a.m. on Monday, the press release had already been picked up by every major tech outlet. Nexalogic secures exclusive rights to breakthrough data processing algorithm. Dr. Veronica Hale named Chief Innovation Officer. The reaction inside Caraxis was immediate and panicked. Victor Maddox, the same man who once called my algorithm back-end clutter, was blindsided. Executives scrambled to figure out what had happened. Legal was pulled into emergency meetings. Engineers were ordered to audit the research servers. Someone even tried to track which version of the algorithm was currently deployed in Account Pulse. It was all too late. Every piece of intellectual property they thought they controlled was now legally tied to me. Every improvement I had made, the ones they never noticed, the ones I worked on in silence, was documented, patented, and publicly acknowledged under my name. By noon, Caraxis's stock had dropped 7%. Clients were calling. Investors were demanding explanations. And inside the building, whispers spread like wildfire. That afternoon, I received an email from Victor himself. "There appears to be a misunderstanding. Please call me at your earliest convenience." I didn't reply. I forwarded it directly to Nexalogic's legal team. Let them handle the misunderstandings. Back at my new office, things were calm, productive, focused. Daniel stopped by with coffee and a grin. "You broke the internet this morning," he said, "and a few boardrooms." I smiled. Let them refresh the page. By Tuesday, things got worse for Caraxis. 2 major enterprise clients reached out to Nexalogic, asking if they could begin migrating their infrastructure to us. They didn't want to get caught in the legal mess. They wanted stability. And now, I was the stability. Miguel kept me updated through encrypted messages. They're pulling server logs, code commits, old email threads. They're trying to prove they own the algorithm. They didn't. Every angle pointed back to me and my airtight documentation. Wednesday morning, the stock dropped another 9%. Marissa Kane held a company-wide meeting trying to project calm. She opened her mouth to reassure everyone and froze when someone asked a simple question. Did we really let the person who built our core product walk out without securing the patent? She had no answer. Victor ended the meeting early. By Friday, it was over. Caraxis released a quiet but unmistakable press statement. Victor Maddox stepping down as CEO. Marissa Kane and the company's head of legal also departing. Effective immediately. No spin. No thanks for their service. Just damage control. I didn't post about it. I didn't celebrate. I didn't give interviews, though my inbox was filled with requests. I showed up to work. I led my team. I built. They had underestimated me. They thought I'd go quietly. But I didn't just leave. I left with everything that mattered, and now they were paying the price. By the following week, the story had taken on a life of its own. Tech blogs dissected the press release. LinkedIn was buzzing with speculation. Industry analysts tried to downplay the damage, but everyone saw the truth. Caraxis had fired the wrong person, and I wasn't just gone. I was winning. At Nexalogic, things moved fast. Miguel and the rest of my former team didn't hesitate. One by one, their offer letters were signed. By Friday, all 6 engineers were on board. Same team, new company, better pay, and finally, their work recognized. The mood was electric, not loud, not flashy, just real, focused, fulfilled. Anita, one of the engineers I'd mentored years ago, said it best in our first sync. It feels good to be building something again, somewhere we're actually seen. That was the point. We weren't just coding. We were reclaiming space, ownership, credit. Our first internal review of the new platform showed performance metrics even I hadn't expected. Latency dropped by 30%. Error rates were virtually non-existent. The system could now adapt in real time to market shifts, something Caraxis's bloated infrastructure would never be able to manage again, not without licensing it from me. Meanwhile, Caraxis was unraveling. Miguel kept me updated. Victor called in all hands, tried to look confident, but no one's buying it. Legal's still scrambling. Investors are furious. Their entire product, Account Pulse, was built around the algorithm I had re-engineered and patented. Without a license, they were operating in dangerous territory. And now that Nexalogic held those rights, any delay in negotiations risked not just lawsuits, but full client migration. And the clients were migrating. 2 of Caraxis's biggest enterprise accounts reached out to us directly, not for information, for onboarding. They wanted something Caraxis could no longer offer: stability, innovation, credibility, and most importantly, me. Then came the ripple effect. Other companies started reviewing their own IP practices. And a week later, a competitor, tSeeItComing, publicly announced a new policy. Every patent must name the lead developer. Attribution would no longer be optional. For years, I had been invisible. Now I was becoming the industry's new standard. I wasn't loud about it. I didn't need to be. Recognition wasn't a spotlight to me. It was a foundation, a line in the sand. And this time, my name was etched in permanent ink. 1 month after I left Caraxis, I stood on stage at the National Tech Innovation Conference, the same conference where, a year earlier, I had sat silently in the back row while Victor took credit for my work. Now, the spotlight was mine. Today, I began, I want to talk about innovation, ownership, and why credit matters, not for ego, but for truth, for accountability. I didn't mention Caraxis. I didn't have to. Everyone already knew. But that wasn't what made the audience lean in. It was the message that the people who build the future deserve to be seen, not absorbed, not erased, seen. 3 weeks after the Caraxes fallout, I was back at my desk at Nexalogic. Morning sun poured through floor-to-ceiling windows. The office was quiet, efficient, humming with forward motion. We weren't chasing headlines. We were setting benchmarks. Under my leadership, Nexalogic released 3 products in just under a year, all powered by my patented algorithm. Market analysts called it a breakthrough in real-time financial processing. Enterprise clients called it a relief. Our closest competitor called it impossible to replicate. They were right, because they couldn't replicate me. Then the numbers came in. Nexalogic had officially overtaken Caraxes in market valuation. Daniel walked into my office that day holding a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. "Happy anniversary," he said. "You're now leading the highest valued data infrastructure firm in the country." I didn't grin. I didn't gloat. I just smiled, with the kind of quiet satisfaction that comes when the world finally catches up to the truth you've always known. That same afternoon, my assistant brought in a sleek black envelope, an invitation. Keynote speaker, Women in Technology Leadership Summit. Topic: Owning Your Intellectual Value, How Proper Documentation Changed an Industry. I stared at it for a long moment. Not because I doubted I belonged there, but because I knew how long it had taken to be invited. Daniel glanced over my shoulder. "You've become something of an icon," he said. "The woman they thought was expendable, now a case study in every boardroom." I gave a soft laugh. It was never about revenge. It was about being seen, about showing the world that innovation isn't anonymous. It comes from people, real people, who deserve real credit. And now? They were rewriting policies, naming developers on patents, revisiting contracts, reshaping how intellectual work is valued, not just because of my story, but because my story made it impossible to ignore everyone else who had been erased quietly before me. That was the legacy. A year to the day after I walked out of Caraxes with a cardboard box in my arms, I stood in my Nexalogic office, holding a quarterly innovation report. Our numbers were up. Our team was thriving. Our roadmap was strong. But more than that, my name was exactly where it belonged, at the top, etched into the future I helped build. And this time, no one would ever take it from me again. If this story resonated with you, about standing your ground, protecting your work, and refusing to be erased, drop a comment below. Have you ever been underestimated or watched someone else take credit for your efforts? We want to hear your story. And if you're into powerful stories like this, where strategy, resilience, and quiet brilliance win, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We've got more real, inspiring narratives coming your way. Turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Because in this space, creators get credit and your voice matters here too.